Learn about the 19th award-winning season of the FPC concerts and meet its artistic director and founder, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the House of Blues. We're focused on the FPC concerts, its upcoming season, and we're visiting with its founder and artistic director, Brown Bradley. Good morning, Brown.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being in this morning. So exciting to be at the House of Blues.
It really is.
And to know that you've got a family tie-in here.
That's right. My son's here every night playing with Entrance, the house band.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
How long has he been up here?
I think since they opened, just about.
Is that
9
right?
years, 8 or 9 years.
This is such an amazing facility. When you come in and visit it, you never have any idea that it's 59,000+ square feet. And
so many rooms.
So many rooms.
And all different. It's great.
It is amazing. I just love being in here in these great chairs. Brown, real quick about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
No, I was not this area, but I was born in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
That's between Charleston and the Midlands?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like? What was it like growing up in Orangeburg?
Oh, it was wonderful. We had the big river there, the Edisto River, that everybody spent all summer down on. In fact, I was a lifeguard for 2 years there. And it was just a marvelous time, and we had so many artistic things going on in school. We had a wonderful man there, Frederick Ulmer, who every year we would meet the train from New York to Tams Whitmark would send down all the scenery for a Broadway show, and we would put on a Broadway show in the Carolina Theater. And it was just a magnificent time when all the community would come in, and they had such great theater there. They had wonderful choruses. So many people from Orangeburg have gone on to very big arts careers. George Darden, who was during my time there, is now an associate conductor at the Metropolitan Opera. And so many pianists that have done so well began there in Orangeburg. So it was quite a little artistic community.
That's fascinating. What do you think was it about Orangeburg that really gave it that flavor?
We had several ladies there who were very much into the arts. And we had, as I said, this Frederick Ulmer, who was head of the chorus at the high school, who would put on all these shows every year. And they just instilled in us the arts, just like the lessons and all the math and the English and everything. We also just had a great helping of cultural arts there.
That is fascinating. Brown, other than your son, do you have any other family here in the area?
Yes, my wife is here and daughter. They run a needlepoint shop up at Hidden Village.
Oh, great. Hidden Village, where's that located for viewers in the PD or southeastern North Carolina?
That's on Highway 17.
Okay.
It's really like 9902 North Kings Highway. It's right in the Restaurant Row area, Cagney's and that area.
The Hidden Village, that's fascinating. Well, what about, where did you attend school, Brad, and Brown, and what did you major in?
I was a pre-med student, and I went to school at Furman first. That's where I got my pre-med degree, although all during my stay at Furman, I was in the operas and the operettas and was singing the solos in the Messiah and all of this. So my parents luckily said, before you go down to the Medical College of Charleston, which I was supposed to begin in September, why don't you take a month or so off and go to New York? And so I said, you can get that out of your system, all of your music. And I said, okay, so I will. I called them in 1st of August and said, I've gotten into a Broadway show, and I'm not going to be going to med school. That began it all.
Oh, Brown, they must have been blown away.
They were. I think my mother knew all the time. That's probably where I would end up.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So she did some behind-the-scenes encouraging to your father to kind of say, oh, he'll get it out of his system.
Right, right.
She probably had a big hand in that. Now, were either of your parents musically inclined?
My mother played piano, but my father was not musically inclined at all.
Well, your mother seems like a real inspiration there.
She was.
When you think about the musical productions in school, some of the ones that really stick out in your mind, of course, it's so exciting to know the ladies were very instrumental there in Orangeburg County, really trying to get some of the folks not only to stay there and perform, but also to move on. But were there any musical productions growing up that really stand out of your mind before ending up in New York City?
Yes, I did the leading role in The Mikado. And before that year, I think we did Carousel, which was one of our shows this year. And the boy who was the other lead in Carousel came back, who's now the head of the neurology department at Vanderbilt, came back and took that Carolina Theater and had it completely redone into like a European opera house.
Wow.
So Orangeburg has quite a theater down there right now. And I'm going back, in fact, this year to do a concert there.
Is that right?
Yes.
So you get back to Orangeburg often. Do you still have family there?
All of my family is gone or passed away, and I do have a few cousins there, but I'd like to just drive back to Orangeburg and look it over. It's a beautiful little town.
I bet, Brown. Now, when you ended up in New York City to get the music out of your system, were there a lot of performances were there a lot of auditions you had to perform before landing a position?
Well, actually, I just went to an open call because I wasn't a member at that time of Actors Equity, and they had already had the equity call for a show called Most Happy Fella. And being very interested in opera and Broadway, the lead of that show was Robert Weedy, who was a Metropolitan Opera singer. And this show was going out for a 6-month tour, and beginning in Washington, D.C. And so I auditioned at the open call, not having any experience, not knowing what to sing. And I said, I have with me an Italian song, which would have sounded ridiculous after I was there a year and knew the ropes.
Oh, right.
And they said, well, that's good because it's an Italian show. So I sang, and that next afternoon I got a call saying they wanted me to come, and I'd have to join the union, which was great for me to get in that easily. And I went out with that show.
That is amazing, Brown. Incredible coincidence. Not only your mother had a little hand in this, it sounds like God was there.
It's true, I think so, yes.
That is truly amazing. And you think about all the activities, being in New York City, growing up in Orangeburg, going to Furman, heading back to Orangeburg just enough time for your mom to say, head on up there, or your family to support you and heading up there for a little while. What was it like leaving South Carolina, landing in the Big Apple?
I've always had a love affair with New York. I just absolutely love it. I was one of those people that just felt at home as soon as I got there. And from the time I got my $125 a month, one-bedroom apartment on West 69th Street, right off Central Park, and we were there until the last 7 years. We moved over to Brooklyn. But that was a bad move. I wish I had stayed there. But we had outgrown it with 2 kids.
Wow, yes.
But that was just in the hub of everything, about 4 blocks from Lincoln Center. And you could walk anywhere. And my kids grew up sitting on the sidewalk a half a block from our apartment to watch the Macy's parade begin right there as it goes down every year. So it was, I was telling your secretary, Loretta, who was there also during the time I was there, our street would have a big block party every year, but it wasn't like your usual block party. We had on our street Gwen Verdon, Bob Fosse, Celeste Holm, Robert Ryan, all the soap stars. And so we had quite a block party when we had a block party.
Wow. How amazing. How exciting. Did you ever get your family to come visit you up there?
Yes. They would come usually once during the summer. And they would stay sometimes 4 days, sometimes 5 days. And that was usually enough for them.
Right. I was going to say, they never got the bug.
That's right. I used to tell all my friends the old cliche was wrong, that you should live in New York as a wonderful place to live, not a wonderful place to visit.
Well, it was tough. I'm sure that was difficult. There's a lot of folks who were destined to stay close to home and probably wanted to stay in Orangeburg the rest of their life. And with a great Carolina theater there and the opportunity
We're glad
to
he
perform,
stayed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brown, did you think that your budding career was going to stop short when you received your military draft notice?
No, that was a real shock to me when I got that. And luckily, I had been my last year in college. I had a friend whose father was a part of the Air Force music program, a colonel that overlooked a lot of it. And he said, you should audition for this group called the Singing Sergeants in Washington. And I said, oh, no, I'll never have to go into the service. I'm going straight to New York. Well, as soon as I got my draft notice, I said, what was that thing now, the Singing Sergeants? So I called and went down to Washington and auditioned. And after 16 drooling weeks of basic training in Texas, I became a soloist with the Singing Sergeants and traveled all over Europe, Far East, and everywhere. It was wonderful.
And And that they were set up. The singing sergeants were set up to perform for troops or
and for that was the years that at least once a month I was at the White House with the Kennedys performing.
Is that right?
They would carry the singing sergeants up there for parties and things, and so we just got to shake hands and meet John Kennedy and Jackie almost once a month when we were up there. And to show you the difference in security, there were 2 tenor soloists in our group, and many times we would go in and I would take the place of the other boy who may have had something to do that night, or he would take my place, and we'd just tell the Marine that was letting us in, oh, Bill's not going to be here tonight, Brown's going to be here, and we'd go right on in. Now, can you imagine that going on at the White House now?
Oh my God, how amazing. How
yeah,
amazing,
it was
Brown.
quite an interesting time in Washington to live there.
And you were with the singing sergeants for how long?
4 years.
4 years, okay. And what enabled you to get back to New York?
Well, my last year in the singing sergeants, I had always planned to go back to New York, but I entered the Metropolitan Opera auditions in Washington and was a winner there, and so they carried me to New York for the finals. And I placed 5th in that audition, and then the Metropolitan took over gave me a grant to study and coach and all of that, of which I later got a little tired of waiting around, and I started auditioning for Broadway shows, and sort of made a big mistake there because they were not too happy after I started doing Broadway shows.
A very different genre than
Yes.
when you left. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that must have been, with 4 years away and traveling really all over the world, the opportunity to get back to New York City. Now, were you yet married, Brown?
No, I was in a show called Half a Sixpence that ran on Broadway about 3 years, and Tommy Steele from England was a star. And they talked me into going out with that show on the tour, on the national tour, which was going to be 6 months in Los Angeles and 6 months in San Francisco and 6 months in Chicago. That was when the touring was really good. So I went out to Los Angeles, and every night I would eat at a sort of cafeteria restaurant under the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, where they have the Academy Awards now. And we were performing on the stage that night. And I saw this good-looking girl down there with 2 older women every night, and I would watch her through some of the mirrors, and I noticed she would look at me every now and then. And I came back up, and I told the guys in the dressing room, I said, I think every night I eat with Sandra Dee. And my wife looked just like Sandra Dee at that time. And they'd say, well, that's possible. She's right here, you know.
Yeah.
So then they announced that the lead dancer in our show had gotten a movie, and they were going to have to replace her. And so after about 2 weeks, they called us in one night, and I kept seeing this girl every night down there. And they said, we're putting the new girl in tonight in the show to take over the girl who's leaving. And so I walked out on stage 2 hours before the show to run through the show with the new dancer, and it was Mary. It was my wife. And 3 months later, we were married.
3 months?
3 months later.
That is wonderful. What a great story.
Yeah.
Something you'd never forget.
And that was 37 years ago.
Is that right? How exciting. How exciting. And then to be able to spend much of the next 15-plus years there in the city raising 2 children.
Yes, we loved the city. Until 1985, the crime just got the best of us. And I said, I'm doing now about 10 or 12 jobs with symphonies and things a year. We could live anywhere, and I could come back and do that. So we said, well, where do you want to move? And I said, you know, I've always loved Myrtle Beach. I said, we used to go down to Myrtle Beach every year with my family. And I had also taken my family down for a week or 2 every year from New York. We would break and come down to Myrtle Beach. And so that's it. When we go down this summer, we'll look it over. Well, they had a school then, a private school called Coastal Academy. And they were looking for a music and fine arts director. And I said, I would like to do it. And they sent me a notice saying, we want you to come down. And we just packed up and came down over Easter and bought a house and moved down.
Wow, wow. Now, what was that like for... Now, Mary, had she grown up in New York? Or
No, she'd grown up in California.
Okay.
In San Bernardino, and spent most of her life there in ballet.
So this was a big move for, I mean, both your children.
Yes, they knew the
transition.
beach, but they didn't
Right.
know really Myrtle Beach.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly.
And back when we moved in '85, you know, the symphony had like 4 concerts a year. The community chorus had four, three, I think, and then there was one other group, the Concert Association, had four people coming in, and that was the arts of Myrtle Beach. There was nothing else. That's what prompted us to begin the FPC concert series.
Yes, well, let's talk about that. Obviously, the transition was down. You all had made the move. You were there at Coastal Academy, but you were able to find some spare time to go ahead and launch.
Yeah, well, I was part-time at the Presbyterian Church when I was full-time at Coastal. And then when Coastal closed 3 years later, I became full-time at the church. But I was organist choir master at the First Congregational Church in New York, and we always had a concert series. So I started one here that first year, and that was 19 years ago this year.
FPC Concerts are celebrating their 19th year this year.
19th year. I can hardly believe it. And I think of some of the people we have had. I just picked up the New York Times last night and found Martin Kasich, who played here 2 years ago, a wonderful pianist from Russia, is making his debut with the New York Philharmonic this season, which is quite a boot up for him.
Absolutely.
But we've had many of our people that have gone on and perform in New York now, and I try to catch them very early. There's a wonderful group in New York called the Young Concert Artists, and they have about 3,000 people from all over the world that audition every year, and they pick maybe 8. So I always get 1 or 2 of my concerts from those winners. Because I know we won't go wrong with them.
Great thinking, Brown. Yeah, that's great. That has been your eagle eye on the city to keep in touch. That's the name of that group again.
The Young Concert Artists.
Young Concert Artists. Great.
It's run by and has been for years Charles Wadsworth, who's a big name down at Spoleto every year with the chamber music. His wife runs that, Susan Wadsworth. But then also I had so many friends I'd done Broadway things with. And I get them to come down. Like this year, Susan Ishii and I have done a lot of Broadway. She's coming down with a wonderful baritone right out of Broadway, and they're going to do a wonderful concert.
Golly, Brown, to think this year coming up on 2 decades. I mean, this next year, obviously, the 20th.
We'll have a big year.
I know. To think about that, I was about to ask, can you go back over the last 19 years and highlight some of the performances? There's probably just too many to name. But do any, though, really stand out in your mind as?
Well, all of the Van Cliburn winners were very exciting. You know, Van Cliburn has established this international piano competition, which is probably the most prestigious competition in all the world. And we have always had either a gold medalist or silver medalist to come and play on our series, and all of those have been outstanding. It's one of the few times you'll hear a Myrtle Beach audience stand up and just scream for about 5 or 6 minutes when they finish.
Wow.
It's just really exciting place to be on Sunday afternoon when we have one of those winners. But there have been so many groups and chamber groups and all that have gone on. We had 3 girls last year that all from Juilliard that came together and formed a trio, and now I see they're playing at the Mostly Mozart Festival this year, and it's just all in the timing. The people that I have missed that I regret was having David Daniels, who was from Spartanburg, South Carolina, who's now one of the biggest singers at the Met and Europe and everywhere. And I had a chance to get him one year for, I think it was $3,500 when he was doing an opera in Florida. He was going to stop by Myrtle Beach and do a concert here. And I priced him this year, and it was $25,000.
Supply and demand.
That's right. That's right. Once you lose that first year or so of getting them, then you can forget it.
Well, now, Brown, are there other communities, relatively small communities, permanent population, small communities like Myrtle Beach, that tap into the Young Concert Association, for instance, and pursue some of the folks who are on the cusp of just taking off?
Yes. A lot of my friends who have series like in Columbia, Newberry, and places like that, we sort of keep in touch, and in Charleston about who are you having, would they like to come here. There's a wonderful series in Lake City that's been there even longer than ours, about 25 years, and I'm very good friends with that director, and she a lot of time will take my people, and sometimes I'll use some of her people too. piggyback concerts. Makes it a little cheaper.
Absolutely.
And Coastal Carolina, Philip Powell out at Coastal, oftentimes last year he took 2 of our artists and they did master classes out there.
Yes,
And
excellent.
that helps out too.
Brown, can you share with the viewers a little bit about, we've got 6 or 7 minutes, how the selections are made for the season's programs?
People send us, because we are on a website and nationally, and people send us by the drove CDs and resumes and bios. And then I usually get together with about 4 members of my board, and we listen to them and review them and see sort of what we would like to have. Since we were getting this wonderful grant that we get from the Tax Accommodations Committee of the city, what we've done each year, because they suggested we do this, is one of the concerts we take a poll and send out little flyers in the program to find out what people really want. But it always comes down to they want chamber music, Broadway, pianists, and opera. And so it's always like a pretty much even amount of people that we get checking all those things off. So that's how we sort of keep it. We keep it primarily with solo artists that we think are going places, chamber groups, and we always have some major pianist that comes in. And then our FBC players, we always do a Broadway show every year, and we have locals, Diane Stokes and her husband, and people like that, and Fred Harris, lawyer. You know, we have the lawyers, the doctors, John Charles, all of them are in our shows, and they've all become quite good over the years, and so we have a wonderful little company there that we do. This year we're doing Carousel. Last year we had very big success with Oklahoma. In fact, we could have run it 2 or 3 more weekends, and we should have.
Absolutely. And all the performances are held, almost all of them are held on Sundays, except for the...
Sundays at 4, except the musical. Each year is at 8 o'clock, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Sunday afternoon at 2.
Right. Well, I saw Carousel a couple of months ago at the Florence Little Theater as they were wrapping up the season, which was wonderful.
It's a wonderful theater, too, over there. I love that.
Truly wonderful. And Kiss Me Kate kicked off this weekend at the Florence Little Theater, which is, they're another spectacular group. They're celebrating their 80th anniversary this year, Brown.
That's wonderful.
Happy to know their 80th. Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I used to take, when down at First Presbyterian, when I was chairman of the Waddies, the We Ain't Done Yet group, which is the senior group. We used to always go to Wilmington and Florence every year to see the shows there and eat dinner.
Well, y'all should still go. They're truly amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I know you're slammed with all the activities now. Can you lay out real quick, we've just got a couple of minutes, Brown, the guests performing in this season? Yes,
we're opening with some special guests that are coming in soloists with a program called Opera Goes to Broadway. Last year, if you recall, they put La Boheme on Broadway and did very well for about a year with it, running as a Broadway show. So that's where I got the title from. And so we're going to do a 2-part program. First part is opera, and mostly familiar opera things I think people will enjoy, and opera choruses, opera duets, and trios. And then the second half, we're taking 1 or 2 numbers, about, I think 2, from all of our major shows over the last 10 years, our musicals.
Great.
And we're going to do something from each thing that got very big applause and people like. We're going to put it all in one program for the second half.
Wow.
And then the second, in January, the 25th, we have Suzanne Ishii and Gary Lindman coming, both veteran Broadway stars, been in numerous Broadway shows. Suzanne did the lead in Phantom for years on Broadway, and they're doing a very interesting musical play on the lives of Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy, which was very controversial when they were making movies and doing all the old shows. And then February 8th, we have Jeremy Findlay, fabulous cellist from Salzburg, and Elena Braslovsky, who is from Russia, he's recently married, and they're coming to do a duo concert, and I'm singing some Rachmaninoff songs on that program with them. And then on the 22nd, our real coup de force this year is Olga Kern, who won the gold medal, first woman to ever win the gold medal for the Van Cliburn. And she is coming from 2 years of doing 50 concerts a year.
Wow.
And so we were very fortunate to get her, and I just can't wait for her to get here. And then we're closing with Carousel.
How exciting, Brown. This is going to be a huge season, just an incredible
I'm really
season.
looking forward to it.
If someone wanted information about the concert series or how to get tickets, who would they want to contact?
They could call the church at 448-4496, and they have all the information there. And we can send them a brochure. We have brochures out in different places in town, but you can get one from the church also. We have, and we'll be putting ads in the paper, which include the little slip to fill out if you want to join it. The tickets are $40 for all the concerts. For a patron, that is the side seating in the church. The front seating is $60. And then if you want to be a sponsor, it goes up $300, $500 for benefactor, and those are the choice seats right down front. But it's a wonderful place, a space in the sanctuary that'll have concerts.
And most of the performances sell out.
Yes, we usually sold out every year. It's always right down to the wire, but we finally sold.
Right. So they could call the church at 843-448-4496.
Yes.
And even though they could call the church, it's still a not-for-profit group, FBC Concerts.
Exactly. Thank you for mentioning that. We had to get our charter in order to be eligible for grants. We're very thankful to First Presbyterian to let us use their wonderful instruments and their space, but we're not connected in any other way with the church. It's all a nonprofit, tax-exempt organization.
That's wonderful. Brown, lastly, if you and Mary and your kids hadn't moved to Myrtle Beach from New York, where do you think you all would have moved?
I couldn't think of another place right now. We enjoy it here very much.
You love Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, we really do.
We're visiting with Brown Bradley, the artistic director and the founder of FBC Concerts, celebrating its 19th year. Call 843-448-4496 to find out information or to buy tickets. Brown, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having us and supporting the arts here in Myrtle Beach.
Absolutely, absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Brown Bradley and the amazing FPC concert supporters for making today's Carolina People so special.